Joining us now is a good friend of the show. Is fresh off a 32-17 season, a Mountain West Conference regular season championship. I speak of course, the head coach at Boise State, Justin Shults, joining us here on In the Circle. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me again, Eric.
Well, let's start with last season. When you've had time to reflect on it, you won the Mountain West regular season championship, the first for Boise since 2018. When you reflect on last season, what comes to mind?
It was a great season, but a lot to build on. I think it was the first year of the Mountain West tournament last year. So we get the high of winning the Mountain West regular season, but then we get that sour taste of not performing, I think, the way we thought we should have in the postseason. So I think that's something that we're excited to build on this year is we've got that experience of the double elimination format. How do we come in and play a little bit more sound softball late in the year?
What'd you learn from that conference tournament experience in San Diego? I know it was not what you wanted, not the way you wanted the season to end, but you go through it for the first time. This year you will host the conference tournament as a result of winning the regular season title. But what do you want the returners especially to take from that experience to be better now for this upcoming year?
Yeah, I think the unknown was what was the most interesting last year. Was our first time as a group being in a postseason format, and so I think you don't know what you don't know, and I think the emotions of it got to us a little bit. I thought we got a very tough matchup in San Jose State and Ulegi, and she threw really well in the two games against us. But I think there were some things that nerve wise, I think we learned a lot about ourselves, and our returners are hungry, and they've been fueling this team through the fall and early January on what it's going to take to go and perform well late in the season.
Let's talk about this year's team. Obviously, you do lose some talented players from last year's group, especially on the offensive end. Let's start with that. How does your offense look this year? And who are some names that you feel will be stepping up and become household names, kind of like some of the players that you had last year?
Yeah, I think it's our lineup's going to be different. That's for sure. I think we lost four of the nine starters, or who had majority of the at bats last year, and they were very solid athletes. But I like how we've replaced them. We struggled in the speed department last year. I think we were almost dead last in stolen bases in the country. So we added some speed. But I think we have a good mix of returners and some veterans, but also so you're going to see some young faces along with some transfers. So some new faces I look at is Charisma Bergeson coming in from San Jose State has had a really good fall. Sophia Knight, a freshman from Southern California, has really in every single game that we've played been our leadoff batter so far, and I really like what she can do with the bat. She runs well, she plays a good outfield, and she's playing beyond her years. So I'd say those are the two new names that I'm really excited about and should be in our lineup pretty regularly. And then from the returning side, though, you look at our outfield, we return Jordan Hutchins in left, we return Mackenzie Hanna, Alicia Flores. I expect big production out of all three of them. And then Abby Bumcrot in the infield has done a really good job being our leader, replacing Aaliyah Flores. I expect her to be at second base the majority of the season and really leading us from a vocal standpoint on defense.
You mentioned Mackenzie Hanna. She was second team all region last year, 10 homers, 30 RBIs. Just talk about her and that growth she had last year in that lineup, and now you mentioned her this year. You're excited to there's more to come.
Yeah, she's a competitor. She hit some adversity early in the year last year. She was spot starting a little bit here and there, and then got her chance. I think second or third weekend of the year to really run with it. And I was proud of her because consistency is the big thing. If you want to be in the lineup every day, it's about that consistency. And she really locked in that two hole for us. And she not only could bunt well, but she hit for a lot of power. So I'm expecting her to be in the middle of our order, and I want to see those RBI numbers kind of increase a little bit with people in front of her.
We've talked in the past about how your offenses always make that jump the second year when you're there because the players kind of feel comfortable with the system. Obviously, that was last year. There's this year for the returns. Do you sense that now? Do you sense that comfort level that they know what to expect? They know the philosophy that you teach.
Yeah, absolutely. I think each year it gets easier and easier. The buy-in is awesome. We've actually added a third assistant, and so she's helped out a lot with the offense and kind of has taken it over. So I'm still in it day to day, but she's handling it really nicely, and so she's regurgitating and kind of what we've built on the first 2 years, and she's really ran with it. So it's been exciting to see the growth not only from our offense but also from our coaching staff as well.
Expand on that. Obviously, there's more a growth of the staffs in across college softball. So you have now a third full time assistant. Tell me a little bit more about that. What you just said there, I did not know that you've kind of passed the baton, if you will, as far as teaching the offense there and kind of the philosophy behind that.
Yeah, for sure. So, got to obviously have the third assistant. Allie obviously handles all the pitching. Fran really helped a lot with the offense and defense last year. And then Maddie, who was our GA the last 2 years and got to kind of learn the offensive philosophies. She's taken over. Her primary role is going to be hitting this year, which allows me to have some more flexibility moving around and getting to see all the position groups rather than having to put a lot of my attention on the offensive side. So she's done a good job. It's all the same philosophies. She's been doing a great job learning as well and meeting new people and trying to steal things from everyone else. And so I'm excited to see what it brings for us. I think the one new piece is definitely going to be that speed aspect that we have not had in the past.
Has that been an easy transition for you? Is that hard? Because you've run the offenses for a long time. Has that been hard to just give? I mean, I don't want to say give it up because I'm sure you still oversee it, but not on that day to day operations. And take me through that. Once you made that decision, how are you able to find? Was it a situation where you just knew this is a person that buys into what I'm thinking offensively? Just take me through it because that is fascinating to give something up like you did there that you've done for so long.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about empowerment a lot within our staff and within our team. And so I think when we were given the opportunity by our athletic director and our admin to get us that third paid assistant, I wanted to bring someone in that I trusted, and she's obviously earned that role, being here for 2 years. And so when I asked her what she really enjoys doing, it was the hitting side, and so for me, it's the empowerment piece. If I'm gonna bring somebody in, I'm gonna trust them to do their job. It's with all my assistants. I don't micromanage the pitching, the defense. I don't really micromanage either. And so for us, it's about growing our assistants. And if I'm constantly hovering, and like I said, I'm definitely in the mix day to day, but I allow her to run it, and she's done a really, really good job. And so it's been hard at times because yeah, that's what I've done for the last 12 years. But it's been fun because it's allowed me more time to kind of get some other things that I've really been passionate about from a culture standpoint and just a competitive standpoint.
What was an area that you felt like, okay, I didn't realize I need to pay more attention on this side as a head coach? Because you're not the first coach that has said this year that we've had on that says, you know what, I'm taking advantage of having this third full time assistant to delegate more stuff and maybe oversee more things that I just couldn't in the past because I was focused on a particular area aspect of the game. What areas have you you've noticed this year? They're like, wow, yeah, I didn't realize this is something I've paid more attention to as a head coach. More game management, obviously, but what else?
Yeah, I think it's actually interesting. I got to spend I think 2 weeks in the bullpen as Allie was on maternity leave early, and so it was fun. I think it's the relationship piece for me more than the actual coaching side. Is I'm now able to get with the pitchers more often. I'm with the catchers. I'm moving around a lot more. Where in the first 2 years I handled the infield, I handled the hitters, and so the infielders and myself built this really good relationship. I felt like, but you start to lose out on those other groups because the only time you're meeting with them is usually in some sort of stressful meeting, whether it's academically or athletically. It's so this has allowed me to be more of a human and just kind of get to know them and joke around with the pitchers and stuff like that.
Well, you mentioned the bullpen and the pitching staff. Obviously, I think of a Taylor Caldwell, who I feel like has been there forever. You've added Jenna Bloom, a young transfer who pitched at Arkansas. Just tell me about the staff as a whole.
Yeah, Taylor's back, and we're really excited where she's at right now. She's obviously as a senior, and yeah, she's been around for a lot. She's thrown a lot of innings. Reinventing yourself as a pitcher is huge, and I think she's done a good job of continuing to do that, and really has built her mindset. She got to pitch in a lot of big games last year against some really talented teams, and was in a good spot for about 4 to 5 innings, and then didn't go her way late in those games. And I think she's a more mature version of herself, and I'm really excited to see her take those reins and really run through some of those games and get to um, finish as well as she started. Um, oh,
You
go
think
ahead.
you think she could be your ace? Is that the leadership there in that circle?
Yeah, we're absolutely. She's been here 3 years. She knows what we expect, and so yeah, I would expect her to once again get a lot of the innings. Our job this year is though to keep her fresh and keep her healthy. I think last year we had to rely on two arms for the bulk of the season, and you kind of see as it goes on. They get tired, and people start to get more and more information, and we want our pitchers to be as fresh as they can late in the season. So our job is to build the depth, which we did in Jenna Bloom. We've got a freshman. Our sophomores last year have done a great job growing, and so I definitely think you're going to see more of a staff this year.
What do you expect from Jenna? What has that transition been like for her as she kind of gets to know obviously your players, gets to know your staff, and gets to know Allie and just her surroundings?
Yeah, it's been fun getting to know Jenna. She obviously did not play softball for a year, and so you never know how quickly they're going to get back on the bike and start riding. So for her, she did an awesome job. Came in, could tell she was a little bit hadn't played in a minute, and but she picked it up very, very quickly, and her growth has been awesome to watch through the fall. Her confidence is gaining, and I really expect her to push Taylor. And really to help our staff in the depth in the depth of those two as a 1A 1B possibly as of right now.
Do you feel like a 1-2 punch there, and then the other young pitchers kind of chip in there in variety of roles? Is that kind of the best case scenario there, the vision you have for the staff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think once we get to conference, only having 21 innings, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of go with maybe two, three pitchers. But early in the season, we've got to, and we talk a lot about trust, and I think that's part on me is I have to be willing to trust the depth of our staff. We have a good staff, and getting them starts in the right matchups early on in the season is going to be really, really beneficial for how we finish in May.
Well, you mentioned obviously early on in the schedule, you do not duck people. You're going to start out in Arizona against Northwestern, the defending Big Ten champions. That's your season opener on the 9th of every. You got St. Thomas opening week. You got Wisconsin and Arizona State to host on opening weekend. You go to Grand Canyon, who is obviously an NCAA tournament team that not beat UCLA in the tournament. That's not going to be easy. You're going to Arlington to play in a tournament there in the weekend. You go to play McNeese State. You're going to Baton Rouge to play in a tournament there hosted with LSU. Obviously, the headliner there. You play them a couple times. You got Houston in that schedule, Austin P. You go to Stanford, where you got the Stanford Cardinal. They're very Georgia in that field. You also play Cal during that trip. Just talk about your non-conference schedule as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's our philosophy. It's since I've been able to make the schedule here, we played a very tough schedule last year. I think we're top 10 strength of schedule going into conference, and we're not going to change. I tell our team and our staff all the time. I'm more addicted to the competition piece. The wins and losses early, yes, so I want to win every game, but I'm not as concerned. I want to see the growth of the team. I want to see us compete and face adversity, and the only way you can do that is playing these teams. I mean, Stanford, amazing season last year. LSU has always been good. Georgia, Arizona State, Northwestern. You could list them off, and it's like it's going to be a juggernaut. But I think you learn the most there, and our job is to go and compete and show people that we can play with anybody in the country.
You're playing, obviously, I mentioned that tournament up there in Stanford there. I expect some family members, particular a sister is going to be in the stands with Boise colors, right? Can we expect that?
Yeah, she'll be there for sure. And I don't know what her husband will be wearing, but I definitely think my sister will be wearing Boise State. So
I'm just saying, where's family blood, man? Come on.
yeah.
No, that's gonna be a fun family trip there. But obviously, you're gonna be tested very well with that non-conf schedule, and that gets you ready for conference, which I know is the goal. Why you do that? You are hosting the conference tournament this year. We mentioned that earlier. Tell me first about the facilities, because as I understand it, you've got lights now, which is what you need to host a conference tournament. So tell me about this process that's led you here to host the conference tournament.
Yeah, it's been a little bit stressful because obviously in order to host you need those lights, and so it's been a very fast turnaround. We clinched the opportunity to host last year at Fresno State to win the regular season, and so immediately after that game, I was on the phone with our AD and my boss or our sport admin at the time, asking how do we make this happen. And our athletic director since day one has been amazing, and he's fought for us and he's pushed, and so I knew it was going to get done. But it's been a stressful process, but we have had everything kind of flow nicely. We haven't had any hiccups yet, and so yeah, we'll have the lights up. We get to host, which is huge because from a competitive standpoint and a recruiting standpoint, you can't lose the Mountain West Championship to another school in our conference because we don't have the facility to hold it. And so our athletic director did a great job getting that done for us.
How involved are you as far as the preparation for the conference tournament? Do you kind of offer some suggestions as a coach? Obviously, hey, this is from a coaching standpoint what we expect in a conference tournament, what our players expect. How hands-on are you involved when it comes to the preparation to be the host?
Yeah, I've been very hands-on. I think that was the nice thing. San Diego State was kind of the guinea pig last year, first time as a conference we were able to host, and I thought they did an amazing job with the setup and everything. But I think there were some things that as a conference we talked about. We'd like this, we'd like that, and so I've been very hands-on. We've been handling hotels with the Mountain West, helping make sure that every team's taken care of at a reasonable rate. Facilities making the adjustments that we needed to, so that way we're not stressed of using our cages while games are going on. And so it's been nice to be number two because you definitely get to learn some things, and we're just trying to make it as much of a championship feel for the opposing teams who come in, because everybody works so hard. You don't want any hiccups that weekend.
Winning that regular season title, do you sense there from your players there's a confidence level for the returners coming back having won that title, and B, maybe a bit of a chip on the shoulder of kind of unfinished business? Do you sense that from your returners?
Yeah, I think you feel B a little bit more. Obviously, they're pumped. We're showing off the rings from the regular season this week to kind of get everybody hyped for this upcoming season. But I think B, the chip on the shoulder. I think we got to watch how well San Diego State played in the tournament, and you look at our roster and what we could have done as well. I think it would have been fun to get a chance, but we've talked about it a bunch. The only certainty in getting to the postseason is by winning that tournament, and so our job is to prepare all year, put ourselves in the best spot possible to go win that tournament in early May.
Control what you can control. I mean, it's cliche,
Yeah.
but it's so true, right? If you
Yeah.
control what you can control, you don't have to worry about things out of your range, whether it be committees, et cetera, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the resume early on will also help us realize, do we have a legitimate chance at an at-large bid, or is it something that we're fighting for towards the end of the season? I think we set up our schedule nicely, but I talk with our staff and our players all the time. It's we have to perform better in those games. You look at some of the big games we played last year, competitive at times, but then we also lost games 8-0 or 10-2 or whatever it may be. And it was partially because of the depth in the circle. We really didn't have as much depth as I think we have this year. So I'm excited to see what we can do, having more depth and kind of mixing it up a little bit more as we're tight in a game. We don't have to make business decisions if we're playing a doubleheader. We can just go after that team and then wait till the next game and deal with that when it comes.
Well, and I think you could have been a multi-bid league if the tournament goes a certain way. Let's say you beat San Diego State in the conference tournament final. I think you both get in because they had a good. You mentioned the non-conference. They had some marquee wins in the non-conference that might have gotten them in as an at-large. We'll never know. But we've seen that in other conferences where that's happened. So that's part of the other positive strategy of playing that tough of a non-conference schedule. If you get those marquee wins, it helps the league as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're pushing for. And I think as a whole, we have to do a good job handling our schedule. I think San Diego State's put themselves in a position to go and play that really, really tough schedule. But at the end of the day, I think what our basketball teams have done, our men's basketball teams have done as a conference, everybody's over 500. They were all about 60% or more winning percentage. And so when you get into conference, you're not taking those RPI, or you're taking wins, but you're dropping in the RPI because of the overall conference. And I think top to bottom, that's where we as a coaching staffs have fought really hard to make sure that we're all on the same page of getting that done.
It's a great point. I mean, the men's basketball in the Mountain West this year is having a monster year. There's some talk as we discuss right now. They're taking 5, 6 bids out of the Mountain West, with Boise State being one of those teams after a big, they had some big wins on their resume. Of course, they've had great success in basketball the last few years. Your football program just won fresh off a Mountain West championship. What's it like being on campus with that success? And is that something you tell your players to kind of feed off of that, feed off the success of football, feed off the success of basketball? I mean, it feels like there's a feeding off process going on in that campus. Am I accurate on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's probably more between the student athletes. They all get to talk about it a bunch when they're seeing each other in the hallways. We don't talk about it much as a or as a team, but what I do love about it is it's part of the student athlete experience. When you see other teams winning and you get to be a part of that in the stands, like our athletes go to the football games, they go to the men's and women basketball. It becomes contagious, and you start to see that, and really it builds their experience. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. Is we talk about the holistic experience here at Boise. It's a beautiful city. It's safe. It's clean. Our athletics are awesome, and our athletic director is giving us more and more in our facilities. And I think that's all you can ask for at a university.
Tell me a little bit about the rules. Obviously, in the Mountain West. Tell me about replay. Tell me about everything that what you got implemented, what you're hoping as far as a league is concerned? Because obviously the game is evolving. That there's a 20-second pitch clock that's been pushed. Obviously, illegal pitches have been modified. More changes in the rules. Just give me your overall thoughts and how it impacts from the Mountain West standpoint, from your program standpoint.
Yeah, I love that we're pushing on the replay to help alleviate some of the stress on those bang bang calls. And yeah, our conference is doing a good job this year. They've gotten it all out to us, and financially, every university is making the best decision for themselves. We will have the replay system set up and running, and I think that's going to be a huge advantage. Is allowing us to not have those stressors on bang bang plays and it be dictated by something as close as one step. So we'll have it. I know some of the other teams in our conference are doing it as well, and so it won't be consistent this year, I don't think. But I do think every university is pushing as fast as they can, and when one puts it up, it puts pressure on those other universities to make it happen. So our conference tournament will have it, and we'll be using a six camera replay system, and I really do think it helps everybody in the grand scheme of things, especially if things don't go our way early as a conference and we're a one bid league. You really want that replay system to allow for everything to happen the way it's supposed to.
No, it's a great point. It's a valid point. What's it been like to, you mentioned you win the Mountain West, you want more, but I didn't realize this. I read this prior getting ready for the interview. Boise State's been the most successful Mountain West program, most wins over the last, say, I think 10 years on the stat. I mean, there's been a tradition there winning. When you took over that and you've made, you win a conference regular season title, but you're shooting for more. What is that like to build, continuing that winning and try to build it to the next level? Kind of like you mentioned, San Diego State did that last year. They took advantage, won a regional, got to a super.
Yeah, it's been a fun experience. Obviously, the coaches before me, Aaron Thorpe, Cindy Ball, Maggie Laveri, all did a great job building this, and my job is to take it to the next level. I'm looking at teams like Wichita State who have shown tons of consistency in doing it, and I think that's doable here at Boise as well. With the resources that we have, the assistant coaches that we have, we're able to recruit with the best of them. I love our 24 class. I love our 25 class, how they're panning out, and so I think that it's really about longevity. You look at anybody who's done it, it takes a little bit of time, and each year we've improved slightly. So first year 140 didn't win the conference. Last year we win the conference, and so now can we get to postseason, and continuing to build and tell our story is really, really what I'm excited to see happen.
How are you a different head coach today than you were the first day you took over the Boise State program and was named head coach?
I think we go back to like our team in the Mountain West tournament. It's like when you become a head coach, there's a lot of things that you think you know and you don't know until you're in the thick of it. And so for me, I've tried to be more understanding. I've tried to, at the end of the day, we're trying to empower and grow our student athletes into young women. And so I think that's where I've become a little bit more understanding of everybody's situations, but still upholding that high standard. I think when you come here, we set the tone. We tell them you're going to wear blue cotton t-shirts, and if you don't like it, then that's probably not the place for you. I know we get tons of beautiful gear, but I'm very blue collar at heart, and that's something that we'll always do. Is I want our athletes to understand how hard the people in this department, how hard the people in the community are working for them, and I want them to respect it all. And so for me, it's that combo of yes, being more understanding, but also upholding that standard is where I think I've grown the most as a coach.
Obviously, I mentioned you're going to have lights in your stadium. Will you play regular season games in lights to get used to it? Is that something you practice as well? Because obviously you haven't, you've played night games, but
Yeah.
just as far as at home, because there is something to be said when you're at home or getting used to your lights in your own park. It's one thing to play on the road where you might play once or twice, but there are certain tendencies at home that people get comfortable with, and this is something a little new wrinkle.
Yeah, we'll definitely play some night games early on to get comfortable. And I think it's less about the lighting, it's about the schedule at
Yeah.
home. On the road, we're in the hotel, we do things, we're constantly with the team. At home, we still do some things, but they have a lot more freedom to kind of set their own schedule. And so for us, it's I think getting comfortable with how do we get them out of their beds, how do we get them to the facility to watch film and warm up and stay just as locked in as they are on the road when they're at the hotels. And it's a little bit more micromanaged on the road just because we're always with each other.
It
That's what
also
I'm excited to see. But yeah,
it also gives you
as of today,
yeah, that's going to be great.
oh,
That's
go ahead.
big. That's big. The routine. That's a great point you make about the routine.
Yeah, and I think as of today, it sounds like our first home game will probably be against Washington under the lights, which is really exciting to bring a team of that caliber to Boise to play. We're excited. So I think the fans are going to be excited for that one, and I can't wait to see us break some more records in the stands.
Well, that's a great point. Having lights gives you more flexibility scheduling, which might bring you even more opponents as a result of that, more creativity. Like Washington, I mean, that's a big event. And you mentioned it, more flexibility for fans to come out. You've had great support. I mean, the fans there support Boise State athletics. It's been remarkable. I follow BJ Rains, who covers all of Boise State athletics, and it's wild what they cover. Obviously, football is well documented, but the basketball and the softball, you mentioned, you had a heck of a year supporting, and that was all playing in daylight. Now you're going to have the opportunity to bring fans at night, which sounds like not as big of a deal, but it is, because I've learned that even the last handful of years over here with UCF playing more night games since Coach Ball Malone's taken over, and that helped for whatever reason. It helps fans bring out more because they're able to maybe get out of work, things like that, and now you get to benefit from that.
Yeah, we're excited. And I think that's the biggest thing. You look at those Friday day games we're playing prior to the lights, either 2 to 4 p.m. we're playing. And so not a lot of fans are able to make it over, but having the lights allows them to get off work, bring their kids. We've really pushed on the community to bring the little leaguers out. I think have a very fast growing community. And so I want to promote softball, not only for the older fans, but also for the youth, and continue to get them on our field and see how special the game of softball is.
Is there any other things in the works facility wise you would like to see happen in the future there? I know the lights was the big thing. Tell us, for those that may not be familiar with your facilities, describe it for those that are going to get to see it maybe more this year.
Yeah, we're at a multi-sport facility. We have a football field behind us that's also our track and field utilizes it. But our softball field has a nice stands. It's got the berm out in the outfield, which I think the fans love the most. Can sit out there, and on good days, that place is packed. But our goal is to continue to upgrade more and more. I think blue turf is going to be in the mix. That's what I keep pushing on. So got to keep branding. Everyone knows football, and my job is to continue to brand us. And I think the blue turf allows us to get that national brand. And then we got to expand the stands. I think that's something we've earned the right, or the student athletes have earned the right to expand the stands so more fans can see what they're doing every single day.
That blue turf, blue field. Now you got me intrigued here.
I might get in trouble for saying that one. I keep pushing on it, so we'll see what happens.
Listen, you got to swing for the fences, as the cliche goes, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the increasing the stands. I think that's tremendous. That's a great sign that should happen as well from the softball, because obviously, like I said, you're going to be hosting conference tournaments. Who knows beyond from that standpoint? When you look at the Mountain West this year, and now you've been in the league now a couple years, what are a couple things you've learned? And what do you want to tell people that maybe don't follow the Mountain West Conference on a daily basis and don't realize really how good the league is?
Yeah, it's a competitive league, and I think top to bottom, we've shown that in the past, and our job is to continue to show that. I think the visibility piece is the hardest. I urge people to watch. I know we're on the Mountain West Network, and it's on an app now, but it's like we need to keep pushing and telling our story and getting more people to watch. It's easy on ESPN right now for a lot of the like the smaller conferences, the Power 5 SEC, they're all jumping on ESPN, but we have a great app. It's Mountain West Network. The more people we can get on that app to watch the quality of softball, it's competitive. 2 years ago, San Diego State and us played down at their place essentially for the conference championship early in the year. And that's elite level softball. We have a lot of teams in this conference who can play that way.
No, it's a great point. Linear also, I mean, I've seen the Mountain West basketball's kind of taken advantage of that by being on a lot of the channels. I think that's the next step for the league from a softball, and all the other Olympic sports, I think, would benefit from that too. That is tremendous exposure from that standpoint. And you're right, it's some great softball. I've watched the Mountain West Network, a lot of late night games where there's some wild finishes, man. Like I'm telling you, and I mean, a league that you used to coach in, the Pac-12, as we know it, this is their last year. So after this year, I could argue that maybe the Mountain West becomes that West Coast softball that people are looking for. I know the people in the Big West feel the same way. Is that something you've thought about as somebody that's coached in the West Coast, that, after this year, the Pac-12 as we know it is kind of done, and the Mountain West, there's more exposure, perhaps opportunities from a West Coast standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of hit it on the head as you're watching over there very, very late games. And I think our demographic is we got to be able to own the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, the Arizonas, Idaho. and really get those fans invested in the Mountain West. And the more they're invested, I think the quality continues to climb and allows us to be a multi-bid league. And then once you get a multi-bid league, I think that's the momentum that is created. San Diego State goes to super regionals last year. You look at teams like McNeese State, one pitch away, one out away from going. And the more opportunities we have, we get two or three teams, and now we're on TV on the biggest stage later in the year for more fans to jump on board with.
Which helps recruiting too, because you know this, right? You know, there's going to be some players and family that like, man, I want to stay closer to home, and if I don't have that opportunity anymore on a Pac-12, maybe I go to in Boise State, maybe I go to a Mountain West school. I mean, that all of a sudden that your leagues, Mountain West like could benefit from getting more talent and players because of the fact that hey, you could sell them on the fact you're going to a great school, you're going to great competition, and it's closer to home still.
Yeah, absolutely. We recruit heavily that way. There's flights, direct flights from Arizona, 2 hours, SoCal, 2 hours, NorCal, hour and a half. And so we really push on your families can see you more often coming over here to Boise versus having to go across the country to play quality softball. Because there is quality softball to be had on the West Coast. And I think it's just more about promoting it consistently and getting the name out there for everybody to see.
All right, well, his last question before we let you go, as you get ready to start the season, what are a couple keys? What are a couple questions you have in your mind that you're looking forward to finding out about your team that you can only find out once you play other competition in February, right? Because I've always learned from coaches, February is a month where you learn a lot about your team and then you kind of adjust around that. What are a
Yeah.
couple things that you're looking forward to finding out about your group?
Yeah, I want to see what happens with our leadership when adversity hits. I think everyone talked a lot about Serena Hutchinson last year behind the plate, E at shortstop, E Flores at shortstop. We lost both of them, obviously. And so we have great leadership on our team. A lot of the upperclassmen have stepped up. But when that adversity hits, who does everyone lean on to see how we get through the hard times? I think that's the thing I'm most excited to see in February. And the other piece is just see how fast we start. I think last year we started a little bit slow, and part of that was maybe my coaching style in January, and we're changing some things around to make sure that we get off to a good start because we're not getting to ease into any games. We're playing competitive softball from day one, and so we don't have as much leeway to kind of get away with our sloppier play. It's got to be elite right away.
You mentioned the leadership. Is that something you like to see organically play out? Is it something that gets established early? Is it evolves? Like how does that leadership work from that standpoint? Like you mentioned, you had some great leaders last year. You mentioned
Yeah.
Serena Hutchinson, who I believe was an NCAA Women of the Year candidate, if I
She
remember
was a
correctly.
Woman of the Year candidate. Yeah,
Uh,
did a great job on and off the field.
Yeah, you don't replace those type of people, but they create opportunities for others. The question is, how do you kind of transition that? Where do you see that right now?
Yeah, and I've done it both ways. We've told people, hey, these are our leaders, and I think the only way to do it now though is the organic approach. Is we know who people who's stepping up every single day, who's making sure that the team's going the right place and doing the right thing. So this year we kind of allowed it to open up organically, and it's really been our upperclassmen. That's year three with us. They know what our standard is. And they've been pushing on people to do the right thing and really climb to the next level. So we haven't really appointed any leaders, but I think people are starting to look to a few of them on the upperclassmen. I think Ashlyn Whalen's done a great job this year. She's been behind Ali Sang in the past, got some playing time last year, and she's done a great job leading. And I expect big things from her and to see her in the lineup more this year. Abby Bumcrott's done an awesome job. And so Taylor Cottle's always been great. She's in the circle being a leader over there. And so it'll be fun. But once adversity strikes, you really get to see who do people turn to, and that kind of helps you set up the rest of the year.
Is Taylor somebody that leads by example, or does she lead with her vocally?
She's a lead by example type of person for sure, but she can get vocal when she needs to. She's very type A personality, has all of her ducks in a row, so it gives her some leeway to say what's on her mind, and I do think people listen to her. So it's not always the case with pitchers. I think sometimes they're in their little bubble, but she's done a good job making her rounds and really being someone who's consistent and people can lean on.
Yeah, because that's big with some of the young pitchers you got on your staff that you talked about. To have somebody like Taylor that's been through it all, they could probably see what it's like and get them ready when they get their number called. I think that's a huge advantage when you have that. And she's always impressed me when I've seen her pitch. And I look forward to seeing her once again pitch this year. I look forward to seeing your team once again play this year. I won't get to see you in person play, but I'll get to see you on the streaming apps, as you mentioned earlier. Coach, always thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I know it's a busy time. The weather's kind of wacky,
Yeah.
but I always enjoy you. Like I said, I always enjoy watching your teams play. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Good luck this year, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing for the game. You keep pushing the coverage, and that's awesome for all of us. So I appreciate you.